Hi, I'm Avery Davidson. Thank you for joining us for This Week in Louisiana Agriculture, the only TV show bringing Louisiana farmers and consumers together every week. 2020's hurricane season touched every corner of the state. There are still active storms in the Gulf and Atlantic even as we speak. Eta and Theta, with the possibility of the 30th named storm of the season, a record, Iota, forming by the time this show airs. Southwest Louisiana saw 2 hurricane landfalls this year, where high winds and some storm surge made life miserable along the coast. TWILA's Neil Melancon takes us to Beauregard Parish, where those back-to-back storms have ruined trees and plans for folks living there.
In the rural communities north of Lake Charles, the damage from this year's storms looks familiar. Roofs with tarps on them and shuttered businesses mark the 1-2 punch of Hurricanes Laura and Delta. For landowners like the Dowers, a picture is worth 1,000 words on the damage. The trees in their pond that are brown are from Laura in August. The still green ones are from Delta in October.
You could step just out the door and just hear the popping noise, sound like firecrackers going off, that the trees were breaking in half. We couldn't see anything. I probably would have been scared if I'd seen how close the trees were that were breaking. We thought they were further out in the woods.
Deborah and her husband have had quite the ordeal beyond the storms. Mike spent the early part of this year in treatment for his second bout with cancer. It's left him too weak at a time when there's too much work for healthy people on their property.
In April, he got his stem cell transplant, and he had to stay in Houston another 3 months. So it's been a year. He still hasn't gotten his strength back. So we're just trying to do this by ourselves.
It's work that needs to get done. All the down material is a haven for insects and disease.
Okay, the highest priority is managing this debris that's on the ground. This is an attractant to insects, to disease. Already some of the entomologists that are monitoring this situation are seeing an escalation in Ips beetles, and that could continue to damage the timber that remains out here. Add to that, if we have an especially dry year, this is really increasing the wildfire risk.
The Dower situation is typical of landowners here in western Louisiana. 70% of their trees are down this year, enough wood material to represent Louisiana's annual output.
Statewide, there's enough timber on the ground from these hurricanes combined to actually match what we would normally harvest in a year for the state of Louisiana.
Preliminary estimates of the damage are at $1.5 billion, but that doesn't include the 15 to 18 years it's going to take to get these trees regrown. The only relief in sight is for some programs powered through years of severance fees.
Some of that money is returned to the parishes and where the timber is cut for road and bridge maintenance, but some of it is actually set aside in a special fund and it's in that forest productivity program as a cost share back to landowners to let them actually recoup part of their severance tax monies to help them reforest their land.
In the meantime, the Dowers are counting their blessings. Their 80-year-old father is still active doing what he can to get this side-by-side back up and running. Deborah said at the very least, they've learned how much they can endure.
It's just been a rough couple of years, but we survived it, and we've got it better off than a lot of other people did.
As workshops on how to get some of that financial aid become available, we'll bring you that information as soon as we know. Follow us on our social media and our website, twilatv.org. And of course, as you saw, Avery, they need that financial assistance, advice. Debbie's plans were to retire on some of that money revenue from those trees. And I mean, she has a job and they have work, and I mean, they're going to be okay. Yeah. But I mean, they have children and grandchildren. They want to enjoy that time. All of that area, that property that was so lush is now, you know, so heavily damaged, and God knows how long it's going to take for them to get through all that, to get back to some semblance of normality on that property.
I remember back right after Hurricane Laura speaking with Buck Vanderstein with the Louisiana Forestry Association, and I asked him, how long is it going to take some people to recover from this? And he said, some people will never recover from this, and it sounds like that's the case with the folks in your story.
Indeed, and I mean, I think you can see, Buck could certainly see, and the Dowers can certainly see, some of the people in that area are recovering from Rita, and so they haven't really regained that. Some of those trees were just getting ready to be harvested, and then these two storms come in and knock them down. And then on top of that, I mean, the guy, Mike Dower, suffered from cancer twice, you know, in the last 3 years. There's stories like that all throughout this region, and unfortunately, I don't think the wood is going to be there for them to be able to, you know, have any kind of financial boon to this. Some of them are saying that they're getting as little as $2 a ton for that salvage material that they're scraping off the forest floor.
And that's not even paying for what they did. Thank you very much, Neil Melancon.